Researchers have known for some time that GLP-1 RAs, Ozempic, cause muscle loss. Concerns about loss of skeletal muscle and therefore loss of strength, resilience, ability to exercise, quality of life have driven some research in this realm. Anecdotally, some people on these drugs, the most common of which is Ozempic, have complained of Ozempic face, this like sagginess, Ozempic butt, same thing, but on the butt, and even Ozempic personality. There are widespread reports of nausea, too, and more limited ones of intestinal obstruction. I've got all my links here, so you can look these up. Gee, what could go wrong? To the problem of muscle loss, though, never fear, the heroes who brought us Ozempic are working hard behind the scenes to bring us new drugs that will combat the loss of muscle caused by Ozempic. Pitched as if they care about the muscle loss that occurs after immobilizing surgeries like hip replacement, it's abundantly clear that the pharma companies have their eyes on the prize of the vast population who have jumped, or might yet jump, on the Ozempic bandwagon. For such people, what's one more pill to pop, especially if it comes with a sheen of precision and more magical promises? Brand new research, this is again a year ago, finds that Ozempic doesn't just take a toll on skeletal muscle, it's not kind to cardiac muscle either. Experiments done on lab mice found that whether the mice were at a healthy weight, achieved by eating a nice standard diet of laboratory mouse chow for 10 weeks, or were overweight, achieved with 10 weeks on a high-fat, high-sugar diet, their hearts and heart muscle cells shrank on Ozempic. So here's the little visual from the article that I'm citing here. Be they starting out as normal weight mice, admittedly lab mice, normal weight mice, or obese mice, when given semaglutide, Ozempic or something like it, the fat mice lost body weight. The already appropriately weighted mice did not lose body weight. But in both of their cases, their heart size shrunk and their myocyte, that's their heart muscle cell size, shrunk, whether or not they lost body weight. Therefore, the authors conclude, and I think I write this here, the effect on heart size and myocyte size is due to the drug, not due to the weight loss, which is what has been claimed by Ozempic enthusiasts. In short, and here's just my summary.
Wait, could you say that one more time?
I think I'm about to,
okay.
In terms of what I wrote here. In short, put a fat mouse on Ozempic, and he's going to lose weight, but his heart and muscle cells will also shrink. Heart and heart muscle cells. Compare this to put a thin mouse on Ozempic, and he will not lose weight, but his heart and heart muscle cells will nevertheless shrink. That's what you want me to repeat? Let me just finish this section. Mm-hmm. Thus, the heart and muscle cell shrinkage do not seem to be a result of the weight loss, but of the Ozempic itself. To all of those hoping that this latest pharma wonder drug will be the answer you've been waiting for, it's not. We don't yet know what kind of horrors it will release on the human body, but we already have plenty of evidence that it's not safe. The people who are selling it to you don't need it to be safe. They just need plausible deniability. And I do want to go to a new article that's just out, but you have a reaction here.
Well, I have two new reactions. One of them might need to wait, but the idea that a weight loss drug is having measurable impacts on the heart, I would argue, is in and of itself invalidating, right?
Of the drug being prescribed to people without extraordinary circumstances.
Right. Maybe there are extraordinary cases in which it is worth, but the answer is that you're messing with the fundamentals of your heart by taking this drug.
Mm-hmm. Now they say they didn't see any changes in cardiac function, but how long, I don't remember. And I don't remember how long they looked at these mice for.
Your heart cell size is going down.
Heart cell size and overall heart size are both going down.
Basic point is heart side effects with unknown consequences.
Yep.
Again, break out your barge pole and don't even use it on this stuff. Stay farther away than you could reach it with your barge pole.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, you had somewhere else you wanted to go.
Yeah. Let's take my screen off here. And okay, so just to review, these drugs are known and were known a year ago when I wrote that article with all the primary references. Ozempic and its chemical kin to cause loss of skeletal muscle, decrease in heart size and heart muscle cell size, even absent weight loss, nausea and intestinal obstruction. Obviously, that's like the mechanism, the accepted mechanism of action of these drugs, and Ozempic face and Ozempic butt and Ozempic personality, right? And now we have this. Let me just see here. In New York Magazine, published November 13th, 2025. Life in Beige, Are GLP-1s Worth a Life Devoid of Pleasure? Now she starts in sort of a explosive way. So I'm just going to scroll past the very beginning. I think the piece is worth reading, but she basically here, you screw like you eat, and then it goes from there. So it's not the point of why we're here. So I'm going to skip past this. But she says that the author has gone on these things, and she's gone on vacation, and she's really enjoyed swimming in the Mediterranean, eating good food and all this. But she gets back and she feels just fine. Weeks went by and more things started feeling just fine. A trip to the Rockaways was just fine. I published a story and felt nothing of the accomplishment. I needed new pants, and I realized I had no desire to buy them, despite being a documented impulse shopper. I had no motivation to date. Suddenly, I felt about Field the same way I felt about ordering takeout on Seamless. I don't know what either of those things are, but nothing sounded especially appetizing, so why bother? I bought a beige sectional, like she literally bought a beige sectional, which was fitting because my brain felt swallowed in a beige blanket. Eventually, I realized my new affinity for beige and appearing dead-eyed in photos had coincided with an increase in the dosage of my GLP-1. Of all the documented side effects of GLP-1, sulfur burps and other indelicate gastric distress, interesting, those aren't the main side effects, but that cute of you to imagine that burping is the worst thing it's going to cause for you. Second-order behavioral effects such as loss of libido and reduced addictive and impulsive tendencies are just starting to gain the attention of researchers. There's been even less research into personality or emotional changes. Unexpectedly, by altering their desire for food, some people say they've lost their desire for everything else. What's left is a long-lasting state of meh, bleh, numb, flat, take it or leave it. It's something like the clinical term anhedonia, the inability to experience joy or pleasure, which is often brought on by depression or in some instances, SSRIs. And that's where I want to go here, which is that I feel like so many of these drugs end up doing what SSRIs do. It's like, oh my God, the human condition is just so out of control, and sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not. Let's flatten you. Let's just flatten you. So the fact that Ozempic and its chemical kin are doing the same thing and taking not just food drive away, but sex drive and everything else, could have seen that coming, and not safe. So I think there's one more section I wanted to read from here. Yeah. So, she's said other things. So some of this is in reference to some of what's earlier in the article, but I notice a version of this the day before I take my next dose, when the drug strength is tapered off. So she's taking this once a week. So the day before she's due to take her next dose, I'm hungrier, but food also sounds more interesting to me in general. Online shopping does too. The fact that she's a dedicated online shopper makes all of her claims less interesting to me, but whatever. On Sunday mornings, I now eat a bagel and build carts on e-commerce sites, so that's apparently success. Some people I spoke to have turned this natural occurrence into an official workaround. They don't want to go off the drug, but they need breaks from the anhedonia. Jeez. If that's not a horseman of the coming apocalypse, I don't know what is. They need breaks from the anhedonia, so they occasionally skip a dose or two. One friend, an author, found that their GLP-1 left them unable to write. They just didn't have the same motivation they used to. They've developed a practice of skipping a dose when they need to produce work. During that week, they come back to life, as do their sentences. It's made them consider the connection between hunger and ambition and productivity. Food is not the only way to satiate a voracious appetite. In a 2023 interview with Wire, this is the last thing I'll read from this piece, Jens Jule Holst, one of the scientists whose work led to the creation of Ozempic, predicted the current state many people are now in. That may eventually be a problem, he said. That once you've been on this for a year or two, life is so miserably boring that you can't stand it any longer and you have to go back to your old life. It would be the price to pay, he said, when you lose your appetite and also the pleasure of eating.
Well, all right. I have a reaction.
Go for it.
It's sort of more general.
That's okay.
I'm beginning to get a sense for something. So we have talked many times about what I call the game of pharma.
Mm-hmm.
And the game of pharma involves using intellectual property to make a huge profit by gaming the scientific system, the medical system, in order to get people to take something based on the plausible argument that it will make them better from something that is not good about their life, or that it will prevent something, yada, yada, yada. But the reality of those claims is unnecessary to the game of pharma.
Mm-hmm.
And if a pharma company was to limit itself to only marketing things that actually worked at a tolerable risk, the number of drugs on the market would be a tiny fraction of what's there, right? Many drugs would just simply be impossible if you held them to a reasonable standard. Mm-hmm. So this vibrant industry has taken on lots of mechanisms for dispensing with questions of safety, dispensing with questions of efficacy. And the real question is, can we plausibly argue that that thing is in your interest? If so, then we just have to, we can treat all of the things that should make this drug impossible to bring to market as obstacles that we can get around because we've got this vast toolkit of tricks.
Right.
Okay. So I want to argue that I'm detecting a new trick that you would expect to evolve in an industry that is basically a racket designed to use intellectual property to bring products to market at arbitrary cost to the health of the people taking them. It involves, what do you do if you have a drug like Ozempic that has a measurable benefit that people really want, right? People are desperate to be thinner than they are for understandable reasons. They've been made fat by sedentary lifestyles, polluted food, lack of sunshine, whatever it is, all of the contributing factors of modernity that cause...
And giant serving sizes and always being around food, so always being able to eat. Modernity
has made people fat.
I mean, modernity has made people fat, but people are also making choices that are making them fat.
Of course. But in any case, what do you do if you have a drug that has a plausible benefit in this regard, a measurable one, but it's got all these ridiculous side effects, like that it affects the heart. It frankly, doesn't minorly affect the heart. It doesn't elevate your heart rate. It actually shrinks the cells of your heart with unknown long-term consequences. Ooh, that's pretty rough. It has the ability to rob life of its pleasure. That definitely dampens the enthusiasm for a drug like this, right? So what do you do? Well, maybe what you do is you think,
the pharma company?
Yeah, the pharma company playing the game. Maybe the idea is, well, what we're really looking for is the maximum area under the curve. That is to say, given this particular molecule that we have rights for, the question is, how do we extract the maximum amount of profit? If we brought it to market and we distributed it in a normal way, then people would take it because, of course, the benefit is one that people want. And it would quickly start dawning on the small subset of the population that started taking it that it was having impacts on their life that were not good. There would be a certain number of, deaths traced to the heart changes, whatever it is. And the thing goes off the market. That gives you a small volume curve. What if the answer is, well, let's make this thing into an absolute sensation, right?
Right.
Where this thing comes on the market and people can't get to their doctor fast enough to get the injections because they've been suffering with this cognitive weight.
Oh, I've seen supposedly journalistic pieces complaining that it's access to Ozempic that is now like a DEI concern, and this is a health equity concern, is that not everyone can get it when they want it. Which is it's ingenious.
It's ingenious. Frankly, it's how they sold the COVID shots. It's how Facebook got to be what it was. Was limited access at first. So the idea is, okay, we're going to create a sensation that is obsessed with the positive thing that everybody will want. The price of the thing is going to be through the goddamn roof. But people have been suffering every day they get out of bed and they're like, oh, am I still fat? So the idea of relief from that is so powerful that it doesn't matter how many $1,000 you charge, for the thing. People are going to want it because it's degrading their lives. So the point is the hype.
Well, it also locks people into the insurance racket more because I believe that many insurances are paying for it. And so once you're having this very expensive drug paid for by your racket insurance, you're less likely to look elsewhere for a more reasonable option with which to fund your healthcare.
Exactly. So you get coordinated rackets that start paying for the thing. The government is going to pay for it because it's going to reduce the obesity epidemic. And so the point is, what you're really looking for is to jack the price up so high that the hype causes people to flood your industry with profit temporarily, knowing that it's not going to last because it's only going to be a year or two before everybody catches on that this has so many downsides.
It's already been more than a couple of years. I mean, it was getting really big back a year ago when I wrote this. It was already pretty big. But I mean, I think actually, can you see my screen? The newest thing that I saw this week is the New York Post. Okay, it's the New York Post, but whatever, reporting that Ozempic is now available to your cats.
Yes. Now I thought, had a even cleverer technological solution to the problem of fat cats.
Well, it's not patentable. And it doesn't put money in anyone's pocket.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, literally just feed your cats less food. Obviously.
Right. Obviously.
And, as I say here, so this is I quote tweeted the New York Post, but as I said, this so perfectly encapsulates our era. My pet has a problem that I have created and can just as easily resolve. But I'd rather add insult to injury and push a pharma solution instead of doing the mature, simple, and obvious thing. And obviously, there are actually complications. People have multiple cat homes, and one of them eats more than everyone else, or they're feeding them the wrong food, and so whatever they feed them, it's making them fat. Like, yes, but also, it's your cat. Even cats like one of ours, who still is a mouser sometimes, and supplements his diet with wild things from outside. Mostly, your cat is entirely getting his food from you. It's tougher for people. Like, you're also presumably not being force-fed food, but you are your own arbiter of what you're putting in your mouth. With your cat, you seriously can consider injecting your cat with something because you yourself can't control your impulses enough not to feed them every time they talk to you. Every time they say, "Meow, I'm really hungry." Like, yeah, buddy, you got to lose weight. The people who are giving Ozempic to their cats, I hope they're not parents, because that is the same mistake the parents make, or many modern parents are making over and over and over again. But he was crying, but he was throwing a fit. Like, yes, it's your job as a parent to ensure that behavior does not last.
And they don't necessarily stop when you fed them. So the point is,
they would eat endlessly.
Right. So the point is, you can have them healthy and feel like they're not getting enough food, or fat as can be and feeling like they're not getting enough food.
They'll give you sad eyes regardless.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So you're right. It's been longer than a year, but I still think the idea of,
But they're looking at new markets.
What we saw during COVID was an emergency was used to get a very dangerous remedy normalized in the market to prime the pump for future mRNA shots, right? In this case, I think what we're seeing is a drug that should have been DOA, right? I mean,
yes.
Let's face it, this drug is basically a constipation-causing drug that reduces your appetite. Like
that's slow peristalsis.
Yeah. Let's just slow down the way things move through your gut.
Just keep food in your gut for longer.
Right. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
So it's
among other things, you're going to end up, I think, maybe this isn't true for some reason, but you keep food for longer in your gut, you're actually going to pull more nutrients out of the food than you would have if it had passed through more quickly. And so you're actually going to get more calories potentially from food that you ate than if it actually had a normal traverse.
Well, I would argue that's going to be true. I would also argue, though, that, weird hypothesis coming. My sense is food rots, that much I will get wide agreement on, that the rottedness of the food has a curve that leaves us sort of unaware of it for a long period of time.
True.
And that what you want are freshest possible foods to pass through you in the shortest reasonable time so that they get properly processed, where you don't have things rotting in your gut.
And I wonder if the argument is different for ferment.
Ferment.
For fiber and for ferment.
Yes.
And fiber, which is food for the good bacteria, which are in the ferment. Well, I guess.
I agree. I'm exempting ferment because ferment and things like cheese, where the point is these things are rotted or fermented.
Right. They're already preserved
in a careful way that has an ancient root. And so I'm not arguing for those things, but for fresh foods, you want them as soon as you can have them. They degrade over time, and the more degraded they are, the more you suffer. I think it is likely for the advanced state of decay that they are in as they are moving through your gut. So anyway, That is a deep out of the money prediction. I'm sure I will be ridiculed for making it, but give it enough time, and I'm thinking I may be right about that one.
Yeah, I think you might be. And so, I think one of the lessons, one of the takeaways from the last two little bits that we did is, eat real meat that's as fresh as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or preserve it well.
Yep.
Jerky's great. That's not rotting, it's preserved.
Yep. Exactly.